Recently, I'm reading The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus. So, at one time, they were under the French occupation, and if you go through his essays, it looks like a lyrical evocations of the sunlit cities of Algiers and Oran, and they often carry the symbolic and thematic significance, reflecting themes of beauty, warmth, vitality, and the human experience. So, if you like, for example, talking about beauty and atmosphere, Camus's descriptions of Algiers and Oran often emphasizes the beauty and atmospheric qualities of these cities, particularly when bathed in sunlight. The play of light and shadow, the vibrant colors, and the bustling streets create a vivid and sensory rich imagery that immerses the reader in the setting. And see, you can see the map, and in this, it's near this Mediterranean type of climate it has. So here is Algeria, and this is Algiers, and Oran is somewhere here. So, and these descriptions also highlight contrasts and paradoxes within the cities. For example, the juxtaposition of sunlit streets with the shadows of alleyways or the warmth of the climate against the coolness of interiors can symbolize the complexities and contradictions of human existence. Everything that he does is he has this. I mean, his writings reflect all of this. Now, if you talk about the light, what does it symbolize? The sunlight in Algiers and Oran can symbolize various themes such as enlightenment, clarity, hope, and vitality. It can also represent moments of joy, warmth, and connection, in contrast to the existential darkness or despair that characters may experience. And see, when you read his essays, like you'll also feel um, about the sense of place and the identity. For example, evocations of these cities contribute to a sense of place and cultural identity. Algiers and Oran are not just physical locations but also symbolic landscapes that reflect the history, culture, and experiences of the characters and the broader context of the narratives. Um, and you can they evoke feelings of nostalgia. Albert Camus, the longing, belonging, or alienation. So all of that. So I'm going to read something from here, from the book. Okay. So for example, if I take, let me read first. He calls it the stop in Oran or the Minotaur. So he writes, and I'm reading from there. It starts like this: the Minotaur or the stop in Oran. I'm just going to read random lines, and you must, when you take up the book, find out which lines did I read and from where. Of course, this is an essay on Oran, so you'll know that. So there are no more deserts, there are no more islands, yet there is a need for them. In order to understand the world, one has to run away from it on occasion. In order to serve men better, one has to be, one has to hold them at a distance for a time. So he writes, the cities Europe offers are too full of the din of the past. A practiced ear can make out the flapping of wings, a fluttering of souls. The giddy whirl of centuries, of revolutions, of fame can be felt there. There one cannot forget that the Occident was forged in a series of uproars. All that does not make for enough silence. Then he talks about Paris. He says, Paris is often a desert for the heart, but at certain moments, from the heights of Père Lachaise, there blows a revolutionary wind that suddenly fills that desert with flags and fallen glories, and so on. He talks about some of the cities of Europe. Then he talks about, I mean, and I'm going to read. The streets of Oran are doomed to dust, pebbles, and heat. If it rains, there's a deluge and a sea of mud. But rain or shine, the shops have the same extravagant and absurd look. All the bad taste of Europe and the Orient has managed to converge in them. One finds helter-skelter marble greyhounds, ballerinas with swans, versions of Diana, the huntress in green galalet, discus throwers and reapers, everything that is used for birthday and wedding gifts. The whole race of painful figurines constantly called forth by a commercial and playful genie on our mantelpieces. So, like for example, um, he talks about advertising, which is so interesting. I found. He says, I read in the handbill of an Oran movie theater the advertisement for a third rate film. I note the adjectives sumptuous, splendid, extraordinary, amazing, staggering, and tremendous. At the end, the management informs the public of the considerable sacrifices it has undertaken to be able to present this startling realization. Nevertheless, the price of tickets will not be increased. It would be wrong to assume that. So, it's very amusing also the way he writes. Then, again, I'm just going to read a little more from Oran. He says the streets of Oran inform us as to the two essential pleasures of the local youth: getting one's shoes shined and displaying those same shoes on the boulevard. In order to have a clear idea of the first of these delights, one has to entrust one's shoes at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning to the shoe shiners in Boulevard Giuliani. Perched on a high armchair, one can enjoy that peculiar satisfaction produced even upon a rank outsider by the sight of men in love with their job as the shoe shiners of Oran obviously are. Everything is worked over in detail: several brushes, three kinds of cloth, the polish mixed with gasoline. One might think the operation is finished when a perfect shine comes to life under the soft brush. But the same insistent hand covers the glossy surface again with polish, rubs it, dulls it, makes the cream penetrate the heart of the leather, and then brings forth under the same brush a double and really definitive gloss sprung from the depths of the leather. The wonders achieved in this way are then exhibited to the connoisseurs. In order to appreciate such pleasures of the boulevard, you ought to see the masquerade of youth taking place every evening on the main arteries of the cities. Between the ages of 16 and 20, the young people of Iran society borrow their models of elegance from American films and put on their fancy dress before going out to dinner, with wavy oiled hair protruding from under a felt hat slanted over the left ear and peaked over the right eye, the neck encircled by a collar big enough to accommodate this straggling hair, the microscopic knot of the necktie kept in place by a regulation pin, with thigh length coat and waist close to the hips, with light colored and noticeably short trousers with dazzlingly shiny triple soled shoes. Every evening, those youths make the pavements ring with their metal tipped soles. In all things, they are bent on imitating the bearing, forthrightness, and superiority of Clark Cable. For this reason, the local carpers commonly nickname those youths by favor of a casual pronunciation, Clarks. So, like the way he's written is so, very interesting. Then again, he talks about the desert in Oran, and in that he says, um, uh, so he talks about that one finds a walled town that turns its back to the sea. He's talking about the desert in Oran that has been built up by turning back on itself like a snail. Oran is a great circular yellow wall covered over with a leaden sky. In the beginning, you wander in the labyrinth, seeking the sea like the sign of Adrain, but you turn round and round in pale and oppressive streets, and eventually the Minotaur devours the people of Oran. The Minotaur is boredom. He calls Minotaur as boredom. For some time, the citizens of Oran have given up wandering. They have accepted being eaten. So, and then he writes, if the desert can be defined as a soulless place where the sky alone is king, then Oran is awaiting her prophets. All around and above the city, the brutal nature of Africa is indeed clad in her burning charms. She bursts the unfortunate stage setting with which she is covered. She shrieks forth between all the houses over all the roofs. If one climbs one of the roads up the mountain of Santa Cruz, the first thing to be visible is the scattered colored cubes of Oran. But a little higher, and already the jagged cliffs that surround the plateau crouch in the sea like red beasts. Still a little higher, and a great vortex of sun and wind sweeps over, airs out, and obscures the untidy city scattered in disorder all over a rocky landscape. The opposition here is between magnificent human anarchy and the permanence of an unchanging sea. This is enough to make a staggering scent of life rise towards the mountainside road. There is something implacable about the desert. The mineral sky of Iran, her streets and trees in their coating of dust, everything contributes to creating this dense and impassable universe in which the heart and mind are never distracted from themselves. So, so at Rainstone, I'm again reading from there, it seems that the people of Iran are like the friend of Flaubert, who on the point of death exclaimed, close the window, it's too beautiful. They have closed the window, they have walled themselves in. So they say, beyond the yellow walls of Iran, land and sea continue their indifferent dialogue. That permanence in the world has always had contrary charms for man. It drives him to despair and excites him. The world never says but one thing. First, it interests, then it bores, but eventually it wins out by dint of obstinacy. It's always right. So I'm still reading. Perhaps is the Ariadne's thread of this somnambulant, somnambulist and frantic city. Here one learns the virtues provisional, to be sure, for a certain kind of boredom. In order to be spared, one must say yes to the Minotaur. This is an old and fecund wisdom. Above the sea, silent at the base of the red cliffs, it is enough to maintain a delicate equilibrium halfway between the two massive headlands, which on the right and left dip into the clear water. In the puffing of a Coast Guard vessel crawling along the water, far out, bathed in the radiant light, is distinctly heard the muffled call of inhuman, unglittering forces. It is the Minotaur's farewell. So here is a little stone, smooth as an asphodel. Well, asphodel is any of the several herbs related to the lilies and bearing white or yellow flowers. It is at the beginning of everything. Flowers, tears, if you insist, departures and struggles are for tomorrow. In the middle of the day, when the sky opens its fountains of light, in the vast sonorous space, all the headlands of the coast look like a fleet about to set out. Those heavy galleys of rock and light are trembling on their keels as they were preparing to steer for sunlit isles. Oh, mornings in the country of Oran. From the high plateau, the swallows plunge into the huge troughs where the air is seething. The whole coast is ready for departure. A shiver of adventure ripples through it. Tomorrow, perhaps, we shall leave together. So, I mean, if you read it, it's so interesting. So, in the next, I'm going to read a little from Summer in Algiers.